And now we're on Mem Dalet Beis the Gemara. Minani Bilu. How do we know that in the case of a Nara who's a Giores, and it was Horasa Shalo B'Kedusha, V'Leidasa B'Kedusha, if she's Mizana during Erison, she still gets skila. After all, in the Parasha Motzi Shemra, it says Bas Yisrael, and her Hora was Shalo B'Kedusha. Right? Her mother was pregnant and jumped into the mikveh for Gerut. On Reish Lakish, the Yom Kra, it says, there's an extra word here, umesa. It says, uskalua anshe ira b'avonim umesa. What is the ribuy of the extra word umesa? L'rabos, to include another woman who gets the same misa. And that's horasa shalom b'kedusha v'leidasa b'kedusha. She's still considered a Bas Yisrael as far as the din of skila is concerned. So Gemara see hachi milke nami milke. What about the flip side of this parsha of Motzi Shemra? In a case where Adam Hamazimim came in, then if it's Horasa Shalo B'Kedusha V'Leidasa B'Kedusha, we should activate the parsha of Motzi Shemra with all the punishments, the Malchus and the Me'asela. Omakro Mesa Misa Lemisa Nisrabsa V'Lo L'Knas. It's a separate halacha Misa. That even though it was Leidasa, even though it was Horasa Shalom B'Kedusha, she's not really a Bas Yisrael, but as far as Misa Skila is concerned, there's a separate ribui with the extra word Umes. Frekti Gemara v'Ema l'Rabos Horasa v'Leidasa B'Kedusha. I never understood this Havamina. I mean, Leidasa Horasa v'Leidasa B'Kedusha, she's a regular Bas Yisrael. Okay, that's what Gemara is going to say that, but what was Gemara thinking? We don't need a drasha and an extra pasuk umesa for a case of a Jewish girl. She's a Bas Yisrael. I mean, I would have said maybe there's a havamina that she's not a pedigree, meaning her mother's a Gioris, her grandparents are going. So she's not a full-fledged Bas Yisrael. But no, the Gemara says we don't go back another generation. Let's go to the other extreme. What happens in a case of a woman who's a Gayata, she's Christina, and she gave birth to a girl. And now the girl has to undergo Gerus, but from scratch. I mean, she's a real Gayata. And the Yisrael, Maya Hanila. We had the extra pasuk of Yisrael in the parsha of Motzi Shemra. What's going to teach me? If you tell me, even if it was Horasa v'leidasa shalom b'kedusha, she's still included in the parsha of Motzi Shemra. So what is the word Yisrael coming to exclude? Oh, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, Motzi Shemra ala Yisoma Patur. So we have now a case of a husband who got married to a Nara, and her father died. So she's a Yisoma. Now the Baal says that she had znus, he brings two Eidim, there was Hazama, he doesn't pay Me'er Kesef. Here's a Rabbi Akiva Eiger who says that he will get Malchus. Okay, that needs more study, but let's just stick to Me'er Kesef. Shenemar v'nosnu la v'anara prat lezu she'en la'at. So there's no tashlumin of Me'er Kesef if there's no father to pay. Wait a minute. Why can't she pocket the money herself? Mosiv, Rav Yossi, Rav Avivi, Ite, Rav Yossi, Rav Zvido. The pasuk in Mafata and Ones, there it says, "Umayin Yumayin Aviyah." And what was the extra Mayin Yumayin, if you recall, the double language? L'Ravos Yisoma L'Knas, Divrei Rav Yossi Aglili. So it means that even though she's a Yisoma, and a man was Ma'anes a Yisoma, there is Knas. Again, there's no father to collect the Knas, but she herself pockets the Knas. When did Rabbi Yossi say that there's no knas of me'asela. That's only when the ones happened. Sorry. When does the halacha say that even though the father's dead, nevertheless she pockets the knas for herself? That's because at the time of the ones, she had a father. And that sets the knas, the chiyuv knas, in stone. But if she was a yisoma from the get-go, meaning at the time of the ones, then Elchinami would not pay knas. And the same thing applies to Motzi Shemra. When does Rabbi Yossi say you're patur? When it's impossible to give the money to the father. But if there was a Motzi Shemra situation during the lifetime of the father, and then subsequently he died, then she herself would pocket the money. Rav Amar, Rav says, Chaya. Then Motzi Shemra on a Yisoma is Chaya. Mimai, how did Rav know this? Midatani Ami, Besulas Yisrael, below Besulas Gerim. Now we have to point out here that Besulas Gerim equals Yisoma. Why? Because a Giores has no father. What do you mean? She has a biological father, but not a halachic father. Once she undergoes Gerus, she's no longer related to her father. So basically, she's a Yisoma. If a girl who doesn't have a father is still a chiyuv of mea kesef if the husband is motzi shemra. Hainu ditzur krol emute gerim. Now I need a pasuk to exclude gerim. Why? Because a Yisraelis Yisoma does collect the knas of Me'asel. But the Torah wants to exclude the case of Gerim. But if you're going to tell me that any case of Yisoma, the Baal is off the hook, and he doesn't have to pay the Me'asel of Motzi Shemra, then Hashta B'Yisrael Potter B'Gerim B'Boy. If he's Motzi Shemra on a Bas Yisrael Yisoma, and he's Potter, then how much more so in the case of a Gioris he's Potter? She doesn't have a father. Omer Shlokish Motzi Shemra la Ketana Potter. Shenema V'Nosnu Avia Nara Mole Dibra Kosu. The Torah added a hey. Again, grammatically, according to the laws of Hebrew, there should be a hey. But in the Torah, there's no hey. Nara is written without a hey. And this is the only exception. In the Parsha Motzi Shemra, it says Nara. And that says Reish Lakish is coming to exclude less than a Nara, which means a Ketana. So Nara Mole Akosim to exclude a Ketana. Maski Flora of Achabaravo, Taima Dixiv Bohanara. The reason why you exclude a Ketana is because of the extra hay of Nara Mole, Frekter of Acha, and if you didn't have the extra hay, there would be a parsha of Motzi Shema. Wait a minute. The parsha of Motzi Shema is made up of two parts. Right? There's one part where there are Eidim Zomimim, and there's a fee and a penalty that the father has to pay. So you'd have a Havamina that even in the case of a Ketana, you should have to pay. How could you say such a thing? The flip side of the same coin is if there were Eidim Zomimim. Just 1 second. What did I want to say? If there were no Eidim Zomimim, I meant to say, and we put the girl to death based on the Eidus that we have. But if she's a Ketana, you can't put it to death. So if as far as the ownership in the case where there were no Eidim Zomimim, clearly we have to be talking about a Nara and not a Ketana. Then in the flip side, where there were Eidim Mazimim, and therefore the father, the Baal is a Motzi Shemra. It's also got to be a case of a Bas Onshin, which means she's not a Ketana, but rather a Gedola. So Memela, I don't need the extra hey, because logically we've already proven and derived the conclusion that the Parsha is written in the case of a Nara. Haksiv v'im emes haya davar hazeh lo nimtzu b'sulin l'nara, meaning there were no Eidim Hamazimim, and the Baal's claim is substantiated by Eidim. Is then the Torah says, we must be talking about a Nara. Nara is a Gedolah. And she can be subject to Onshin. Ketana Labas Onshin. Can't be an ownership. So if the Parsha says that that the Eidim that the Baal brought are upstanding, there's no one is shooting them down with Hazama, then we put this girl to death, we must be talking about an Nara. And if that part of the parsha is talking about an Nara, then the flip side, on the other side of the coin, in a case where there were Eidim Hamazimim, and we're going to punish now the husband for being Motzi Shemra, the same halach will apply. We're talking about an Nara. So why do you need the extra hay? Ella, says the Gemara, we don't need an extra hay to determine that Motzi Shemra only applies to a Nara and not to a Ketana. A Nara called Mokum Shenemer Nara Filu Ketana Mamash. What Rish Lakish has in mind is that he wants to create a klal, a universal principle, that whenever the Torah says Nara with a hay, it's the exclusion of a Ketana. We didn't need Nara with a hay to exclude a Ketana in the case of Motzi Shemra, because she's a Labas Onsh. Shenemar Nara, and I'll prove it to you, says Reish Lakish, in this reformulation of Reish Lakish. Nara in the Parsha of Onus Mafat is written without a hay. And why is it written without a hay? Is afilu Ketana v'mashma. So again, let's just go over this one more time. When there's a hay, you need a Nara Gemura. A Nara Gemura means she's already 12 years old and she's not a Ketana. But if the Torah omits the hay, then it means she's less than an Nara, which means she's a Ketana. So in the Parsha Motzi Shemra, we know that we're talking about a Nara, not a Ketana. That we proved logically, because otherwise she's still Abbas Onshin. Why then did the Torah add the hay? Because the Torah wants to teach you, in the absence of the hay, it comes to include a Ketana. And therefore, in Ones U'Mefaka, it says Nara without a hay, we're talking about a Ketana. And this, my friends, is against Rabbi Meir. Because if you remember the first sugi that we learned in Elunaris, the previous chapter, Rabbi Meir was of the opinion that Kol Mokum Cheish Mecher Ein Knas, which means that a Ketana is excluded from Knas. Tani Shilo Sholosh Midos Binara. There are three different possibilities of how to put a Nara Murasa Shazinsa to death. Ola Edin the base Ameha. She was already a Nisua, and then the Edom came to testify that during her Eris and she had Znus. And now we need to publicize the fact that her Znus was a result of the lack of education that or moral training of her father. Is therefore the base of the right, the base of Yeshizin. So right, the Eidim testify that in the base Chamea, where after Nesuin she had an active znus, is then again the Eidim testify that she had this znus during Erusin. Then we have to put her to death with skila b'Pesach base avir. And here we turn to Daf Mem Hey. Shesokos al Pesach base avir. Omar, what's this public, not a connection to the base of the Re'u gidulim shegidalter. If we didn't burn her, we didn't stone her in Pesach base of the, people would think it has nothing to do with the father. She got married and then she had an extramarital relationship. No. It's all the father's fault. He didn't train her right, and therefore we're gonna stone her by Pesach base of the. But if everybody knows that there's the faulty moral training, the incomplete moral training of the father, and she had his nus, now meaning while she's a Nara Marasa, the Beis Havia, so there's no need for Pesach Beis Havia. Is Sokon Osal Pesach Sharet. That's where we want to publicize this terrible affair in the public Beis Havia. Pesach Sharet. Because again, now she's not in the suits. Everybody knows that it's because of the father. And finally, Sarchel Masof Bagda, a narrow Murasa that had a znus. Now, 6 months passed by from her Yimei Nara, she became a Bogeres. And now we judge her in Bezdin, and lo and behold, we have Edith's reliable testimony that she was Mizana. But right now she's a Bogeres. Is Tidon Bechenek. This entire parsha of Skila is contingent on the fact that she's a Nara. But here, she already became a Bogeres, and therefore she goes back to the general Misa of Chenek. And as we said at the outset today, Stam Misa is Misas Chenek. Just read it to you and then I'll let you go. Here it is. It says in Dvarim Chav Beis, Pasuk Chav Beis, Ki Motzei Ish Shochev Im Isha B'ulas Baal U'Meisugam Shneim U'Stam Misa B'Torah Hi Chenek K'Dei Isa B'Sanhedrin Pei Dalid Amid Beis. Okay, there, Rabosai. We made it under the wire. After all the travels and the doubts that I had, would I make it on time? Then I had computer problems for 15 minutes, you name it. But despite all the impediments, Mitzvah Gedol Lios B'Simcha, and we were able to have this Shia. So I wish you a great Shabbos. And Sunday, Sunday is the moving day. The movers are coming at 8:15. Then I have this class in the NCSY. I'm going to be hopping around. But what say thou? I mean, any...
I think it's fair for you to skip Sunday.
Well, that might be fair for you, but it's not fair for me, because if I skip Sunday, I don't know. I'm always afraid behind by a crazy period of moving that I chas v'shalom are going to fall out of Daf Yomi. I could be missing by one day, maybe, and even that's kind of like on a tightrope. But to fall behind, I don't know.